Okay, is everyone here and ready? Okay, just give me a second. I'll just get everything set up, okay? Just a few seconds, boys, and then we'll crack into this. Welcome to the Bunker of Destruction. Today we are here to talk about how we are going to destroy Bohemian in the next round of Champions League qualifying. Tactically, we are just going to do exactly what we normally do, boys, okay? Does that sound good? I can't hear you, but if it sounds good, just don't say anything. Silence! So that is the plan. That concludes this meeting from the Bunker of Destruction. Upstairs, there is a free cake and hot dogs for you, boys. Thank you for your attendance. Before you leave, can someone please let me out of the chiller? It's cold. It's just not very nice in here. I'm also a little bit claustrophobic. So if anyone can let me out, boys, have you all gone? Oh no, oh, it's small in here, it's cold. Oh. Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 108 of Husavik Heroes here on Shaun Does FM. I hope you are doing well, and coming up in today's episode we are into the new European season for the first time ourselves in the third qualifying round of the Champions League as we do take on Bohemian of Ireland. While that is going on, we are also going to check in with how the other Icelandic teams are getting on in the other various European competitions. So if you are looking forward to today's episode, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying this series here on the channel, also remember to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. It is greatly appreciated. But first things first, before we do get stuck into this upcoming tie here against Bohemian and have a look at the other ties for the other Icelandic teams, we are just going to have a look at the one game that we have played results wise since the end of yesterday's episode. If you missed that one, we had a squad recap, a bit of a recap of the World Cup, and we also took on Nuts KR in a top of the table clash domestically, while checking on how some of the Icelandic teams did get on in the second qualifying round of these European competitions. I'll leave a link to that one over in the top right corner. But we did take on HK in one game off the back of that episode, and it was quite an interesting game, that one. Of course, HK coming into this off the back of a win on penalties in the second qualifying round on the league path side of the Champions League against Göztepe. Quite a few of their players who did feature in that game were unavailable for this one, with them being on loan from us, and in the end that did show somewhat when we did pick up a 3-1 win, a late first half goal there to bring our Galtas on. Early on in the second half, Chakatrare did pick up a penalty not too long off the back of that. Manala did score. It was a bit of a poor effort, that one from Thomas Diaz in goal, but we sealed it with only a few minutes left and made sure that we did grab that cushion goal through Bjarki Bjarkason and pick up a 3-1 win in what was also a top of the table clash. And that does mean going into today's episode we are still yet to drop a point on the league table, now 7 points clear of HK, and with 2 games in hand, Nuts KR also look like they are pretty much nailed on for a spot in Conference League qualifying next season. And behind that, most teams down towards those who are in the relegation zone are still in with a hunt of grabbing that last Conference League qualifying spot. But we are about to get into our first games of Champions League qualifying for the new season. We are taking on Bohemian of Ireland. This is a team that we did take on quite a while ago. It was in our first European season in Conference League qualifying. We did just get the job done over these guys. If we do look at the past meetings, it was all the way back in 2023, a 1-0 win in both legs for us there, both home and away. Hopefully we can do the job by a much more comfortable margin in today's episode, considering how much stronger our team is now in 2030 compared to what it was back then in 2023. But this should be a team we are very much capable of beating. Only 2-star reputation. It does look like quite a kind draw for the third qualifying round of the Champions League. The other tie that we are going to keep an eye out on the Champions path side for this third qualifying round, if we go back to the bigger picture here, is the tie between Olympiacos and Ludogorets Razgrad, because the winner of that one is the team that hopefully we will take on in the playoff in tomorrow's episode. Other things we're keeping an eye out on in European qualifying in today's episode, over to the league path off the back of their win in yesterday's episode. HK, a bit of a tougher task for them here as they take on Genk of Belgium at exactly the same time as we are playing our game. So we're going to be keeping a big eye out on that one, especially if we start to find ourselves in quite a comfortable position down to the Europa League. You can see that Akranes are taking on Ross County in the third qualifying round of that competition, and then all the way down to the Conference League. And you will see up there towards the top that Phil Kia are in Conference League, qualifying the team that were in the group stages of that competition last year, but they have a tough task there, taking on Young Boys of Switzerland. So quite a bit of stuff to keep an eye out on in today's episode, albeit the only thing we'll be keeping an eye out on during our game is that one with HK, as they do take on Genk on the league path side of Champions League qualifying. But we go into this one with exactly the same squad, all first choice players, as we had at the end of yesterday's episode. Just that injury to Nicolosi Caviglia, which does mean Maurizio Goffi is in the squad in his place, but Brynjar Galtason is on the bench as our backup midfielder with that injury to Nicolosi Caviglia anyway. But we are at full strength, hopefully a couple of nice comfortable wins coming up in today's episode. In fact, I do tell a lie, Ian Carlo is in for John Matthews for this first leg because he is suspended after picking up too many yellow cards at the end of the last European season. But you can see there it is mostly first choice, and hopefully we can get off to a good start here. We'll come back shortly from Ireland for the first leg of this third qualifying round tie in the Champions League against Bohemian. And third minute gone, we do have our first highlight of this one as a corner. Thiago Polo there at the near post, but that goes straight into the hands of O'Hara there for Bohemian. They are in the black with the red trim. We are in our home green Northern Lights uniform and do get the ball back there from that clearance. They are playing a 4-2-3-1 here. Bohemian, but some good early chances for us here, albeit that finish from Benjamin Rubio is a little bit weak, but already encouraging signs here as we do approach the 5-minute mark. Still locked up here at 0-0, and Guy gets his head on the end of that into the side netting, and it will remain 0-0 after 5 minutes here of the away leg. And we've had to wait till just past the half-hour mark for our next highlight as one of the Bohemian players there picks up a yellow card, but it's a free kick here, and it goes towards the far post. And for his first goal at his new club, it is Karel Giroux, and after a lot of dominance so far in this game, without many highlights stats-wise anyway, we do open the scoring here in Ireland. Giroux given far too much space there at the far post, certainly not one of our most threatening players aerially at the club, but he is given far too much space there, puts that away at the far post, and we go 1-0 up, 10 minutes shy of half-time in the away league. And 1 minute before half-time, we are about to have another highlight here, a free kick just inside our half as Matthews gets talked to here by the referee for Bohemian. You will see behind my head, unfortunately, Genk have scored a late goal there in the first half of their home league, so do take a 1-0 lead into half-time there. Good chance for Frederick Larsson on the left-hand side, but forces a good save there out of O'Hara in goal for Bohemian. Of course, John Matthews is a player on our books formerly of Bohemian. He will be available for the second leg. They head that clear, do Bohemian, and that is half-time. In this first leg away from home, we could certainly have a more comfortable scoreline on the board, only being up by 1-0, but stats-wise, we are looking quite threatening. Hopefully, we can put the ball in the back of the net a little bit more in this upcoming second half, but fairly happy with the way that we are playing. 1-0 up here at half-time in this first leg. And about 5 minutes into the second half, we do have another free kick here, trying to go far post again. Can't quite do so, but Rakasan finds Zimmerman in a lot of space there down the right-hand side, and he tucks that away in the bottom left corner, and that is exactly the start that we were after in the second half, after not quite getting quite the goals I thought that we deserved from that first half, despite the limited highlights. That's exactly how we want to start. Nice ball there from Rakazan. Zimmerman just stands up the defence there and puts that away nicely in the bottom left corner, and we are now 2-0 up at the 52-minute mark, and we get an interception straight off the back of that goal, so we might be starting to turn the screws here on Bohemian. Frederick Larsson, great chance, but puts it wide. Still 2-0 early on here in the second half of the away league. Okay, we're up to the 63-minute mark. We are about to make our first substitution here. Bassaroge down to a red heart. It will be Galtason to come on for him, but also worth noting, HK have grabbed an equaliser through one of our lone players in Gabriel Zapata. That could be a big goal away from home for those guys there. So it is 1-1 between HK and Genk, and we are 2-0 up inside the last half hour. And shortly off the back of that first substitution, we do have a corner, and Thiago Polo's unmarked there at the near post, puts that into the top left corner, and we are starting to really turn the screws here in the second half. We are now 3-0 up with 25 minutes left of this away leg. Just no one picking up Thiago Polo, which is an absolute crime there from the Bohemian defence. We're now 3-0 up with just over 20 minutes left. And we've got a throw in here at the 77-minute mark. We're probably going to make a change off the back of this highlight. Frederick Larsson can't quite control that, but good header one from Galtason. It's a little bit aerial, dangerous there for us, but we do get the ball back there, and Alejandro Meza makes his way down the left-hand side, puts that in for Rakasan, finds Frederick Larsson. This time he tucks that away, and we have a 4-0 lead away from home with just over 10 minutes left. That is a very good scoreline. One more goal, and we might invoke the mercy rule and just show you guys the highlights of the second leg, albeit it is quite interesting these days when you do have other Icelandic teams to keep an eye out on. That's pretty poor there from Bohemian, letting that in at the near post, but we are now 4-0 up. We are going to make a substitution off the back of that goal because Zimmerman is down to a red heart. Porstein Arnason will come on for him. Only one sub left, but we are 4-0 up with just over 12 minutes left. And up to the 84-minute mark, we have another player down to a red heart. It is Karel Giroux. So we are going to take him off. We have no midfield options on the bench because we have already brought on both Arnason and Galtason. So Fabio Mariano can come on for Giroux. We'll shuffle things around, put Porstein Arnason back in that midfield, but we do still hold a 4-0 lead with just over 5 minutes left of this away leg. And we are inside injury time of this away leg. We are doing a great job. There is all sorts going on late in that game between Genk and HK, so we'll do an update on that very shortly, but that is a great result for us in the away leg, already in a very strong position to be making our way through to a playoff in tomorrow's episode against one of Olympiacos or Ludogorets. Weren't quite at the races in that first half, played well, but not quite the end product, but that did change in the second half, grabbing 3 goals, and we take a nice 4-0 lead back to Iceland for the second leg. That should be more than enough to make sure that we are taking part in a playoff for Champions League football in tomorrow's episode, but we'll get through this post-match if there is any post-match. Indeed, there is not. Go down and check on what happened to HK, and that is a great late result for those guys. They grabbed 3 late goals and turned that around from being 1-1 to having a 4-1 lead going into the home leg of that tie against Genk. So those guys are doing brilliantly for us so far in Champions League qualifying. They are already guaranteed to be in the group stages of a European competition, but if they keep this up, they could even find themselves only being able to go down as low as the Europa League group stages. That is a heck of a result there away from home against a team like Genk. Also worth noting for us, Olympiacos and Ludogorets draw in the first leg that was played in Greece, so it might just be a slight advantage there to Ludogorets, but good news so far for the Icelandic teams. We pick up a 4-0 win and HK pick up a 4-1 win, both away from home. We'll come back shortly, check in on how the teams in the lower UEFA competitions have got on in their qualifying ties before we do come back for the second leg of this one against Bohemian. And we are back just prior to getting stuck into the second leg against Bohemian with that 4-0 advantage. Unfortunately, things down in the Europa League and Conference League not quite going as well for the Icelandic teams as they are in the Champions League. Ross County absolutely spanked Akranes in the third qualifying round of the Europa League, so it already looks like Akranes might be making their way down to a playoff for the Conference League, losing 4-0 there in the first league. Not great against a team like Ross County, I think it is fair to say. And down to the Conference League, of course, where we did have Phil Keir taking on Young Boys of Switzerland. And while things aren't quite as grim for those guys, it still doesn't look that great, as Young Boys do hold a 2-0 lead over Phil Keir after the first leg, and that one was played at Phil Keir's home ground as well. So the home ground advantage is going to shift to Young Boys for that second leg. So not looking quite as good, especially for Phil Keir. Looks like they might miss out on European football after making the group stages of the Conference League last season. But HK and us in a great position. And also, I suppose, Akranes can drop down into a playoff for Conference League football, even if they do, as you would expect, being 4-0 down, lose that tie there against Ross County. But we are about to get stuck in to the second leg against Bohemian with a 4-0 lead. John Matthews does come back into the starting 11 at right back. We'll probably make a few changes to the bench as well, just get rid of some of these players on a heavy workload, as I think we can afford to do that with that 4-0 lead. But we'll come back shortly and get stuck into the second leg of this third qualifying round and make sure that we do have a playoff to look forward to in tomorrow's episode. And we have an early free kick here in this home league. The exact same uniforms as the first one, and Basaro Gay is there at the far post. That's very similar to the one that Karel Giroux did score. Of course, Basaro Gay, much more of an aerial threat, and he gets a goal here in Champions League qualifying, his first goal in the Champions League and puts us up 1-0 nice and early and 5-0 up on aggregate after only 2 minutes here of this league away from home, the second league. That is a great start and not too long off the back of that first highlight. We do have another highlight, and this is a terrible moment here for Bohemian because Boyle picks up his second yellow card inside 5 minutes. So we are already in a great position here, 1-0 up, 5-0 up on aggregate and playing against 10 men nice and early in the second league. And up to the 23-minute mark for our next highlight is a corner to us here, and it is Rakasan who's going to try and put this in at the near post. He doesn't, but Thiago Polo is still there in the middle and he picks up yet another goal. I think he was being marked a little bit more than he was in the first league there, but he still is too good aerially. Puts that in the top right corner, and we are now 6-0 up on aggregate and 2-0 up on the day. Interesting to see there behind my head, Olympiacos are 1-0 up there against Ludogorets, but we are in a strong position, not too long off the back of that previous one. It's a poor tackle that on Rakasan, and I think Bohemian are going down here to 9 men. So they woke up today and chose violence. They are in all sorts of bother here. Bohemian down to 9 men and 6-0 down on aggregate. Free kick to Zimmerman, just puts that wide. Very interesting, this one. 6-0 up, just coming up to the half-hour mark. And with about 10 minutes to go in this first half of the second league, we do have another highlight. It's just disappeared behind my head, but Mikhail Bedrzicki has got a goal for HK, so they are now 5-1 up in that tie. So it looks like we should have 2 teams in a Champions League playoff. In tomorrow's episode, a little bit too much depth on that ball there, looking for Benjamin Rubio, and Talbot is able to clean out for Bohemian. Interesting to see they are starting a different goalkeeper in today's game. Mazer just gets that ball before one of the Bohemian players who was also on a yellow card. So they've got a lot of players in danger already, down to 9 men. This could be a very bad day at the office for Bohemian. Hopefully we can pile the misery on them, but we should be in a great position to make a Champions League playoff now. Zimmerman squares that for Rakasan, falls back out to Larson, back in for Rakasan. Missed the first attempt, but puts that one away in the bottom right corner. And about 8 minutes before halftime, we are now 3-0 up in the home league and 7-0 up on aggregate. We are absolutely blowing Bohemian away. It is complete night and day, the difference in quality between these two teams, albeit obviously those 2 red cards have not helped. We are now 7-0 up, not too long before halftime here in the second league. And that is halftime in the second leg of this third qualifying round for the Champions League. 2 red cards in that first half there for Bohemian. And as you would expect, because of that, we are absolutely thrashing them 3-0 up at halftime, 7-0 up on aggregate. Hopefully more of the same here in the second half, and hopefully HK can keep on winning as well. 2 Icelandic teams in a playoff potentially tomorrow. 10 minutes into the second half, we are about to have a free kick. Behind my head, you will see Genk have grabbed an equaliser on the day, albeit that does only mean they are still 3 goals behind on aggregate. But Nicholas Zimmerman there bangs that into the top right corner, and we go 4-0 up nice and early in the second half. And just as that was happening, Arnason grabs the goal back for HK as well. So they are now winning both the second league as well as that first league, both Icelandic teams in a really good position early on here in the second half. And up to the 60-minute mark, we're going to make our first substitution here. Yet again, Basaroge down to a red heart today. We have Maurizio Goffi on the bench. He can get some game time in the DM role. 8-0 up on aggregate with a half hour left of the second leg. And up to the 79-minute mark, we are going to make our second substitution. We have had a few highlights since we did grab that early goal there in the second half, but they haven't been too threatening. A few offside ones, so it didn't really feel like they were worth showing you guys with the situation in this game. But Frederick Larsen is down to a red heart. Chaka Traore to come on for him. With 10 minutes left, we are still 8-0 up on aggregate. And now 84 minutes gone, we are going to make our last substitution. Still no more updates from that HK game as well, if you are wondering, but we do have Rakasan down to a red heart. He has been great today, getting lots of assists. Chat Zarkis can come on for him. We'll switch him around with Maurizio Goffi, but that's our last substitution. 5 minutes left, 8 goals up here over both legs. And we do have a corner here just as we are entering injury time in this game. We try and put that towards Thiago Polo at the near post. Probably more importantly, HK are 3-1 up now, so they are certainly going to be in a Champions League playoff. Great chance there for Zimmerman, but that comes off the upright. But this highlight does continue, but good to see HK will also be in a Champions League playoff in tomorrow's episode. So at the worst, they will make their way into the Europa League, and Karel Giroux sets up Chaka Traore there for a goal off the bench, and we are now winning 5-0 in the second leg, 9-0 overall. We are absolutely blowing Bohemian out of the water, albeit you would expect it in the second leg after they did pick up 2 red cards there in the first half. Chaka given far too much space there down the left-hand side, tucks that away, and that should be all she wrote with only about 2 more minutes left of injury time in this one. Nice ball there from Giroud, and Chaka being played onside there by one of the Bohemian centre-backs, and that will do it. A very, very comfortable win in the third qualifying round there of the Champions League, 9-0 over both legs there against Bohemian, and to go alongside that, of course, HK, unless something drastic happened late in that game, should also be through to a playoff after beating Genk quite comprehensively as well over both legs. As you see there, Bohemian, those red cards really did prove costly there in the first half, and they also had a few players on yellow cards as well, so that certainly did not help those guys. But there you see down below, HK beat Genk 3-1, and in the end, very comprehensively, 7-2 on aggregate. Hopefully, they don't have to play PSV in their playoff because they absolutely destroyed Zenit 15-1. That is a huge scoreline, but both us and HK are through to a Champions League playoff. And in tomorrow's episode, we are going to be taking on Olympiacos. They picked up a 2-0 win away from home. That could be quite an interesting tie. We might get into that shortly as well, because Greece, not that far above us in terms of the coefficient table at the end of this season, but we are through to a Champions League playoff taking on Olympiacos in tomorrow's episode, and so are HK as well. And we are back a few days off the back of that win there over Bohemian in the third qualifying round of the Champions League. Before we do reveal who HK are playing, and also we've had our youth intakes, we'll have a bit of a look at that as well. We'll just go down to the low UEFA competitions, see how the other Icelandic teams did get on Ross County in the end, battering Acronis 6-0 on aggregate. So those guys are going down into a playoff in the Conference League, and also not good news in the third qualifying round of that competition for Fylkir, as they yet again got beaten 2-0 in the second leg, so do lose out 4-0 to Young Boys. Quite a tough draw for those guys after they did make the group stages of that competition last season, but they are gone from Europe, will not be joining us this time around. But there is still a chance for Acronis in a playoff in the Conference League, albeit it is a very, very slim one, because they have been drawn against past winners in Brighton. That is, of course, the team that did beat us in the final of that competition a few seasons ago now. So you would not think Acronis are going to be winning that one. They might be dipping out before they reach the group stages of the Conference League, unless they can pull off a massive upset. But we are at least again going to have 2 teams in the group stages of European competition at the least in the Europa League as well, because in tomorrow's episode, we are going to be taking on Olympiacos of Greece. We have beat those guys before, so I would like to think we can get the job done over those guys and make our way through to the Champions League group stages yet again. And going over to the league path side of the playoffs, HK are taking on Shakhtar of Ukraine. That is quite a good draw for those guys. They avoid both PSV and Porto. I think it's fair to say that playoff is a lot stronger than the one that HK are involved in, but HK, a sneaky chance of reaching the group stages of the Champions League alongside us. That would be massive for a club like that who have struggled so far in European qualifying. Hopefully those players that we have loaned out to them, they do seem to be doing a good job. Hopefully they can keep that going and maybe sneak their way into the group stages of the Champions League. Even if they lose that one though, the worst they can do is end up in the draw for the Europa League group stages. So nonetheless, that is going to be a very nice payday for HK. They could do some interesting stuff with that. Might come looking to get some more of our players on more permanent deals. But we are going to be taking on Olympiacos in tomorrow's episode. I did mention before that's going to be quite an interesting tie in terms of the coefficient, because if you go and have a look at that, there you can see what the table does currently look like. Greece are just below us, but are going to rise above us. And if we do have a quick look here at what the coefficient is looking like for the end of this coming season, you can see we are already jumping up to 14th, but Greece are jumping up to 13th. So if we can pick a win up in tomorrow's episode, hopefully in both legs, that would be some good ground that we could close potentially there on Greece, and we might even be in with a sneaky chance of going above those guys as well at the end of this coming season. But already, even though it is quite tight in there with us and a few teams in and around us, it does look like we should be in for a bit of a rise, provided things do go to plan and HK can do a decent job like they have been so far this European season. Hopefully we can get back up and get that extra Champions League qualifying spot back after we are going to lose it for next season, as well as that Europa League qualifying spot as well. But that is quite a big tie coming up in tomorrow's episode, of course, making the group stages of the Champions League, but also for those coefficient reasons. But before we do round up today's episode, we did have our youth intake a little bit earlier. It was supposed to be a good one. Wasn't actually that good, but we do have one quite promising talent who has come through in this youth intake. We have already had the trial games, have offered contracts to a few of these players. He is a goalkeeper, so that is very, very useful, a potential future homegrown club and nation goalkeeper, and that is Atle Hjelmsen, I believe is how you would pronounce that name, 16 years old. He looks decent, and he could be our third choice goalkeeper for the first team. Might even get a little bit of first team football should someone like Thomas Dias or Husavik get injured in the future. But that looks like a decent pickup there with that 3.5-star potential and 1.5-star current ability through our youth intake. Always good to get a promising goalkeeper homegrown at the club. To go alongside that, we have 2 3-star potential talents as well. One of them is a left winger, that is Snorri Van Kasteren. That's a very interesting name, but he's probably actually going to end up being more of a midfielder, but doesn't really fit many of the positions that we do use here. So he's going to need a little bit of training with those positions that he does like, but he looks decent enough. Obviously, with that 3-star potential, could be of some use to us in the future, especially with the transfer values some of our 3-star potential players do have here these days. And the other player that we have so far offered a contract to is another young striker coming through at the club. This is Sveinbjorn Bjarnason, 3-star potential, 1.5-star current ability, has very good determination. So hopefully we'll reach that potential and looks like a decent prospect in the future for us up front. So those are the 3 players we are definitely going to sign out of this year's youth intake. Not a great one, but certainly not a bad one when you do get a homegrown club goalkeeper with 3.5-star potential. But that will do it for today's episode. Hopefully you enjoyed it, being Bohemian to make our way through to the playoff of the Champions League tomorrow against Olympiacos. And also we have HK taking on Shakhtar as well. We are playing absolutely no games in between today and tomorrow because the first leg of that Champions League playoff does come right off the back of that second leg there against Bohemian. So we should have a fresh available first 11. Maybe Nicolucci Caviglia will be back from that injury as well to take his place on the bench. But coming up tomorrow, we do take on Olympiacos. Also worth noting, in between those games there against Bohemian, we did beat Natskar 3-0 away from home in the Molkebikeren quarterfinal, so are through to the semis of that competition, taking on Akranes, of course, who are in a Conference League playoff in tomorrow's episode, albeit not much hope for those guys as they do take on Brighton. But coming up in tomorrow's episode, the Champions League playoff, hopefully we can get past Olympiacos for a number of reasons and make the group stages yet again. But if you did enjoy today's episode, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying this series here, also remember to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. But until tomorrow for that Champions League playoff against Olympiacos, and also hopefully we might see HK joining us in the group stages of the Champions League as well. Until then, thank you very much for watching. Keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.